have to wear that stupid orthopedic boot thing anymore.
Wow. Is it weird to look down and see matching shoes?
To wear that stupid orthopedic boot thing.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of SEO Fight Club. Just popping out the YouTube chat here so I can keep track of the comments, saying hello, and reminding you to ask questions early because sometimes, not all too often, but sometimes we don't have time for all of them. So if it's at all important to you, please ask the questions early. You could also just suggest topics too. Um, all right. So with that, let's see here. Let me enable sharing like a pro, and you got to call it out like you're a pro too. So sharing enabled. Feel like the villain in a Despicable Me cartoon where I have to call out freeze ray before shooting.
Well, you also didn't do this. You
Yeah,
have to do this if you're gonna.
yeah. There's a protocol.
There is.
Have to do it on camera too. None of that down at your waist. Yeah.
So, my news of the day is it looks like the Cora Skype group will be moving. Turns out that their very generous offer to migrate the entire group over didn't come with the notification that the maximum limit of the group is still 250 and I can no longer add new people to the group. And so that's just untenable. Teams just killed itself in my business with that maneuver. So I'll be changing this week. I'll let people know. My thinking is discourse at the moment. If you're very concerned about the move and opinionated about where we move to, you have this week to change my mind. Otherwise, it's discourse.
And
Uh,
my spot in your core group is now up for sale for $5,000. If someone wants to get in the group and isn't, I'll I'll step up.
I'll sell you mine and
it
Terry's for 5,000 because I'm running a 2-for-1,
it
Black Tuesday deal.
it won't work. I'm so far above the limit. If you guys quit, you're not getting back in either. No one is. That's the problem. I can't get new customers in there.
Ted, you're killing Terry and my side hustle. What you
Really?
want to understand what you're doing.
Yeah, I'd have to change the discourse to even make your side hustle work.
So Ted, will teams sell you more seats or is it just like teams like, yeah, 250 is the max?
If you go paid, the limit's 300 on
Okay.
all of them, all the way up to enterprise.
What you can pay extra per if you want to.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
if the second you go paid on something like this, they want a minimum of $4 per user for the whole group
Per month, I assume.
per month.
Oh my goodness.
But still, even then, even if you're willing to pay the money, they can't seem to go above 300.
Oh, you're still limited at 300. So
Yeah,
you can
it's a
go
non-starter.
250 and then the next 50 is $4 a pop and then that's it. That's
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, because I'm. What's that match?
I don't think he
Oh,
intended to be
Yeah, he
much.
muted himself.
oh, okay. Yeah. I'm almost at 500. So, if I have a case where new customers can't get in, and I have a situation where old customers who took a break can't come back in, the link to join the group doesn't work because the group is full. And so, yeah, I got to get that fixed.
And so even if they accepted new stuff, the next user he adds is $4 retro back to the first. So the next user costs him $2,000 a month. So
Eek.
I think I'm beginning to understand why they made a migration. Someone did some bean counting someplace and said,
Yeah.
"I've got a way for us to make more money."
Well, they just made me a very loyal discourse supporter. So I don't know what else I can do. So I think that's probably the writing on the wall for how to pivot.
Hmm.
I know there's a few diehards for Slack out there because it's already in their work environment. That's probably the only other contender, but I mean, Slack doesn't have as many advocates as Discourse.
Well, I can tell you the the numbers that I ran when we were looking at Skype closing down. I waited till the last minute to see, because I knew some groups were going to move to Discord, some to Slack, some to all these various things. And there were two things that I found. One, people don't like to have to log into 20 different platforms. So if I'm not using Slack, I don't want to have to set up a Slack just for Quora or just for whatever else. But Discord, I gave some serious thought to because of the way it was organized. Unfortunately, I have not seen a Discord group that's active. So Discord seems to be a place where people go to read but not interact, and they don't go frequently. So we stayed on Teams because at the levels that we have, it's easier to get the interaction and everything else, and it works just fine. Everybody just automatically migrated over, what Charles was saying. But so I don't know where the best place is for you. If you have to leave Teams, it's probably Discord. That was the second most frequent, when I did some surveys, that was the second most frequent platform. But not everybody's on Discord. There's less people on Discord than there were on Skype. So you're going to have some drop off just because of the inertia of setting up those accounts. And there's going to be a drop off in the action, in the interaction in the group.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to drop all my new SEO discoveries there to lure people over.
Yeah, and they'll come to read. They just won't, there's not a
Well,
lot of.
that's okay. I largely use the Skype group for the real-time chat aspect of it. And so that actually gets improved because we can break it down into two or three topic areas. So there could be a lobby for off topic, there can be an SEO, there can be a Quora, and that way you're not inundated with the parts you're not interested in.
Yeah, and that's a good model, and several people have set that up. It's just the it's just not designed for that that interaction that you get. So that's the one piece that is the downside of not having a threaded thing like or an SMS like interface like Skype or Teams, is that you do lose that interaction.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do there. I suppose the other option would be to try to do it all with a Facebook group and Messenger.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my group is just a little over 300. So, of course, team brought them all over, which is great, but I can't add any unless I lose some. And then still, if I'm above 250, I'd have to um, pay to add somebody. But I also, while I was in Skype, also had a Facebook group because when I started mine, there were some people that were vehemently opposed to Facebook and some that were opposed to Skype. So several are in both groups, but they're not, completely exclusive. So when I looked at Teams, I also looked at a couple other platforms, and they were lacking different things. And of course, Teams didn't tell me anything about their 250 limit. They were saying, we're going to bring your whole group. I just assumed that meant that was a okay sized group, but obviously I was wrong there. So yeah, I've found a few things with Teams that I'm not happy with. But the Facebook group doesn't get near the interaction that the Teams group does, or the Skype group did before that. So, yeah.
It's an interesting thing, Terry, because you're in a little bit different situation than Ted, because you have a paid group. So, if somebody, goes out or somebody comes in, you have to be able to add them or, verify them, in both platforms. Whereas Ted doesn't care. But is that, kind of painful for those that want to do it both ways, or is that fairly simple in your process?
It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. I mean, obviously, to join the Facebook group, they have to be on Facebook. So it was people who already were using Facebook, and the same way with Skype for the most part. But when somebody new came along before Teams, I'd send them a link to the Skype group and the Facebook group, and they could use either or both. And I'd recommend they use the Skype first. Then I would know what email, PayPal email, was associated with that Skype user. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and I could translate that over to Facebook then. But yeah, it is a little different. But people are not paying such that I'd want to take $4 of that from everybody uh, and throw it to the wind, or to
No,
Microsoft in this case. But
no, because your group, it's less than a Skype or not than a Chorus subscription, so you don't have the room in that. Not that you'd want to throw that at. So how, if you had somebody that comes on today, you can't add them into Teams. How do you add them? You just say, "Hey, we have a Skype group. Good luck."
actually, I find out whether I can add them into my Teams community. Teams lets you have a Teams community that allows you to break up different categories and all that kind of stuff that you can do with Discord or Slack. But so I don't know. I guess I should try adding someone to that and see if, because not everybody that's in my Teams group is in my Teams community, because not knowing any better, Microsoft really screwed up when they told us about this. Going to have to leave Skype, because so I formed a Teams community, and then a week later, Microsoft said, "Oh, by the way, we can just transfer all your stuff." They had been told before. We'd been told you need to download all your data, which I did, all your Skype history and everything. Then it turns out I didn't need to after all. So
Ted, that might be a solution for you. After all, you could split up and have, two Quora Skype or Teams groups.
No, a 250 cap is a kiss of death. I think Teams died today.
Moment of silence for
Yeah,
Teams.
yeah. Pour some on the ground for your Teams groups, because with a 250 limit, I don't see how any serious group could go on.
I don't know
They
why
kept that
Sari's
real
weird
quiet too.
rounding.
This is the sorry, Clint. I was just gonna say this. They kept that real quiet. This is the first time I'm hearing about a limit with Teams.
Yeah, they make it look like it's a video conferencing limit. But when you try to add someone new to the Quora Skype group, it complains that the maximum user limit is 250, and I'm at almost 500, so I'd have to kill like half the group to be able to let new customers back in.
and while that might not be an entirely bad idea, it would it's cause problems.
Yeah, 250 isn't gonna cut it for me. My immense enterprise of a company breaks that limit all by its little self. And so, if my small business is untenable there, I'd imagine most business is going to be untenable there.
Well,
That's really bad product design.
I'll just throw this out there, Ted, if you like. Clint and I will volunteer to go through and we can eliminate probably 400 of the members of that group for you.
I mean,
Yeah,
if you just eliminated the freebie seekers and knowledge time vampires, then yeah, and just keep your paying customers. I don't know, how many would you have? It would be good enough, ample for you, right?
no,
I don't think it's a
I
bad
don't
product
think it
design.
would
I
do
think it's a good product. Good product design, because it says, "Hey, this sucks. Let's go to Discord." That's
Yep.
what I. And I've been telling people forever, don't base your businesses on these stupid chat things. I mean, those guys at RYS Academy, I finally got fed up because because they never, oh, we're going to make a website. We're going to do like you did. You made a forum. They have several products to be supported. And then their answer is, let's create 50 fucking Skype groups for each product and then yell at you when you're asking about the wrong product in the wrong Skype group. And I'm like, come on, guys, like,
Yeah, that's no good.
have a little bit of imagination here and solve this problem. So,
Yeah. All right.
I mean,
So
I
that-
wouldn't even use Teams if it wasn't for Lee's and group and your Skype group at the end of the day.
Well, so
and
now when he switches, I'm going to hear about it from you, aren't I?
no,
Well, you've
that's
been hearing
why
about
I'm
it forever, but you both are on the whole, let's make, I gotta analyze the 50 steps of why moving is good and then do a SWOT analysis on each one of those steps and then collect data using.
You want to see the PowerPoint? I'll show you the PowerPoint.
well, I just, I wanted to know where the crowd was going, so I didn't want to rush to move. And I really wanted to understand why I'm leaving, and now I really understand why I'm leaving. So yeah, slow to learn, but I think my rationale is right. And so I'll try to get Lee to move over to Discord too, and that way we can just kill teams for everyone. And I think that we are influential enough in SEO that we can make Discord where the cool kids go. So we could do that for the community. I will do that for you because I am literally that cool.
I'm looking at this, and this is going to be a great test. I look forward to the results.
Yeah. This can't possibly end badly.
No, it's got
I
all the hallmarks
foresee,
of a win, major win.
yeah, what I see it happening is if you did it, right, is you would announce it in your group. There'd be 50 conversations about why X, Y, and Z is a better option. You shouldn't do it. You're gonna pull a plug on that Teams group and start it somewhere else, Slack, Discord, whatever. And then 95% of that group will disappear, and then your actual active engagers will be the ones that move with you. That's what happened when I moved SEO Intel. I essentially
Yeah,
wiped out all the freebie seekers and time vampires, and everyone that was, already engaging anyway moved just fine. So
yeah, I suspect that'll happen. It just, it feels very similar to starting over.
yeah,
Mhm.
it does. I mean, my Discord at some point, I was like, I wanted to take Dan Kurtz's idea and just make a whole bunch of fake people and AI and go in there and start talking until until the group grew a little bit more. But I mean, I've even paid for Traffic Think Tank. It was 147 a month, I think, before SEMrush bought it. And it's the same. We're all paying to be in there, but the engagement was real low anyway. So I mean, I think you're just gonna end up just kind of accept it at this.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so we have a presentation from Charles to start off our day. Reminder to people to ask questions. We try to go through them in order. Um, so, Charles, tell us a bit about your topic.
So I about a month, actually a little more than a month ago, Jordan Pierce, he had made a little tool, and I'm going to share it with everybody today. He made a little tool about making an LLMs.txt. Now I'd heard a lot of people talk about that, how it's important, and I think Ted, you've mentioned, hey, if you use this, maybe it makes you look less like like the spam set, and it's supposed to be good for getting the Claude and ChatGPT and Perplexity and all these bots should then start crawling your site. So I said, well, let me just do it and throw it together. So I used this tool, and it's actually you don't even need a tool to make it, but a tool's, kind of quick and easy. Put it out there. And then I decided, like I do with everything, it's like, well, let's see what hits it. So I watched the server logs for it. And so yeah, that's if you want, I'll share my screen right now and get into it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So I would call this kind of maybe a palate cleanser of a deck because it's just kind of light and relaxed. Just add a little fun stuff. So I added an LLMs.txt, and my question was, who's going to visit it? Am I going to get visits to the site, or is it going to, is it going to get hit by all these different bots? Is it not going to get? I don't know. So yeah, Jordan made this tool, kind of cool tool. So shout out to Jordan Pierce, and there's his link. I'll give the link again at the end. That you can go to his site and then just generate the LLMs. What you have to do is you create it's a TXT file, but there's really two steps to it, and he says it in his on his site. But you have to create a link rel alternate tag that points to the LLMs as well. So the only way anybody's going to find it or know it's there will be they'll go to your homepage, they'll see the link rel alternate tag, and they'll know, okay, I need to go to the LLMs.txt. And so I put it out there, and I just waited. Then I realized after 2 weeks that my log analyzer didn't check for any of the AI or LLM bots or really anything. So then I had to go back into the log analyzer. Screaming Frog has a log analyzer, went back there and added all of them. So up until this point, I was pretty down on Screaming Frog's log analyzer. I was kind of like, it's kind of limited. You really can't do much with it. I'm wrong. You can do a lot more with it than I realized. So you can add specific bots. So I added a bunch of custom bots to it. You can open it up. There's a lot of different things you can do it. What I noticed, what I realized is that by default, when you set it up, it only looks for like Googlebot, Bingbot, Yandex, DuckDuckGo, just a handful of bots, and then that's it. So it's intentionally excluding out a lot of bots, but you can customize it and put it in. And actually, what I would also recommend folks do, and Ted, this hopefully is close to your heart, but add all the SEO tools to the bot and to the log analyzer to see which SEO tools are crawling your site. The point you've always making is you've got these SEO tools are crawling your site and then selling your data to your competition. So definitely want to add those in there as well. So anyway, so I added them all in there. And so I checked after, yeah.
Oh, I was going to say on that last slide, for some people out there, a big piece of their traffic is going to be nothing but the competition looking them up. And another thing you might want to consider putting in there, which would be really cool if you have a medium to larger business, would be the Open Graph consumers. So there's a Skype bot and a Twitter bot and all these things that will come and fetch the markup when your link is shared. And so when you see those, you're actually seeing people sharing your page on social media, and you can analyze how many shares you're getting. So yeah, those bots would be an interesting category to monitor as well.
You could with Screaming Frog's log analyzer just open it up and say, "Hey, show me everything." The problem I've found is that the tool is not meant to get a lot of large data. It really drags. And I've even noticed with my little stupid test affiliate sites when I open it up and start bringing in all these different bots, it started dragging a little bit and starts having a little bit of a refresh issue. It could also be a little bit my PC. I don't think so though, but I've noticed that it doesn't seem to like it. So if you're a medium to larger size, you'll need something more than a tool like this. But it is a definitely a great place to start. And by the way, you can see the ones I opened up. I did ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity bot. There were apparently 2 different Perplexity bots. So I threw those in there. So the first thing I checked is, all right, after about a month, I said, all right, am I getting visits? Is my site getting visits from, so I can see that the ChatGPT is hitting my site relatively regularly. Perplexity bot was hitting my site occasionally. Claude was not hitting my site at all. I wasn't going to go to Claude and try to ask it to go to my site. I wanted to see, would it just go to it all by itself? So I haven't been going to any of these Perplexity or ChatGPT saying, hey, check out my site or something like that. I didn't want to do, I wanted to see, would it just go there on its own? The LLMs.txt was not visited by any of those AI bots. The only thing that showed up, and actually showed up almost immediately, was Bingbot. Bingbot found the found the file, and started hitting it relatively regularly. I noticed when I downloaded this stuff just a couple days ago that there was a Google bot that hit it, but it wasn't Google bot. It's some spam bot. I went and checked the IP address. So it's just been Bing that's been hitting it regularly. And I guess Bing either looks for it regularly or looked at the rel alternate. I think it found the rel alternate because I checked to see if Bing was getting a 404 on LLMs.txt and a bunch of my other sites, and I wasn't seeing that. So I think it found it through the rel alternate, but I'm not 100% sure how.
So that's an interesting thing, because we go back, I don't know, about a month or so ago, you did an entire presentation on, Bing's looking for all kinds of sitemaps and things, and this is kind of a form of that. Do you think it's just kind of in their nature to look for information primarily this way?
Well, yeah, looking at the sitemap, so we know that Bing looks for four or five different variations of your sitemap on the site. Whether you have it or not, it looks for it, and it will hit and get 404s regularly on that. So that we knew that. So I was wondering if Bing was looking for the LLMs.txt by default as well, just checking every site. But like I said, I checked my other sites, I have a bunch of other test sites, and I wasn't seeing 404s from Bing bot on LLMs.txt, so I don't think that was happening.
At least not yet.
Yeah, I think it saw the rel alternate tag that I put into the homepage. Bing must look for that.
So is this the rel alternate is just on the homepage?
Yes.
So the interesting thing then is that you have the other AI that will come and crawl your homepage. They're gonna see that rel alternate there that was, you went to the trouble of building specifically for them, trying to make them feel welcome to the neighborhood, and yet they ignored it.
Yep. So when I put this up, like within a couple days, Bingbot was hitting it. So Bingbot was very quick to respond to this file, which is what really surprised me. And it keeps, and as you can see, it comes back about once a week, a little bit more often, actually.
Where did the idea to add it as a rel alternate?
I'm sorry, what was that, Clint?
You said you added rel alternate to the homepage. Where did the idea to do that come from?
The original idea came from Jordan because he's put it in his little documentation. So then when you check up the LLMs.txt documentation, that's the standard that they're pushing for, saying, hey, if you have one, tell the bots you have one by doing a rel alternate tag.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like Jordan's wouldn't work for me, so I had to use the one that Rank Math made.
Okay.
And the way they implement it is that LLM text is essentially a copy of the whole website. So if I did that rel alternate, I would be lying because I would essentially say, here's my whole website, right? So that's why I was asking, like, where did that come from? Because it seems to me if you're going to use a rel alternate, then you have to have a unique LLM txt file for every page of your website.
So in the past, whenever I've used rel alternate in the past, I always use them with RSS feeds in the news sites, and every category would get. So when you're feeding Google, so when we're talking about using rel alternate for RSS, Google has processes they look for, and they'll tell you put in the most important RSS feed for that category, but then you can put alternates to the alternate. So you can say, hey, this is our our US news, but then you could put your general one underneath it if you wanted to. Same with the article, you can put the rel alternate in that head for that article of what RSS feed that article should show up in. So it seems to be pretty flexible about what you're allowed to put in there. But from what I've seen so far, no one crawls it. No one's even looking at it.
It's the technical reason for that tag at all to like even exist is kind of the inverse of a canonical tag. So a canonical tag is saying, hey, we have all of these versions of a page. They actually stem from this one official source document. And so all these pages are equal to that. The rel alternate is for like different language versions, different formatting versions, but it's the same content. It's all about, a different version of the current page.
See,
And so you're saying with the rel alternates, you can have many of them, that these are all the versions of this page you're on.
Mhm.
that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting because that's what you use when you do like the hreflangs,
Yeah.
and I think even the AMP HTMLs, you're using a rel alternate.
Now, it could be that they're using it for AI, but what's in the LLMs.text that would be the current page content? Because if it's just a list of other pages on the site, then you might be confusing the receiver of it of what the current page is.
I'll
So I
open up
guess
right this
I
second, take
guess
a look.
can we see what's in the LLM.text?
As long as it doesn't give away my site, yes.
Oh, or you could
Yeah, it
tell
totally
me
gives it totally gives
yeah.
Yeah, I'll happily share it if it's not
Is
giving away
it
all my site.
is it a list of URLs? I mean, what is it?
The one in rank math is actually the text. It strips everything out of the website but the text. So that's what's left in the one that rank math creates. And
Charles,
Yeah,
it
when
mine
you
creates the
has
LLM TXT, and then there's another one that it creates T on top of that.
yeah, it has the URLs in it. It looks like it's grabbing the text off the page.
All
Um,
right.
Yeah,
So
Charles,
and
you
it
might
is
be
has
able to, can you
and it has
go
like
to
the
like
title
some
tag.
LLMs.txt documentation and it'll show us a general example rather than your specific.
Or
Yeah, let
what's
me open that
supposed to
up.
be there,
Give me two
or
seconds.
the thought process behind what's supposed to be there. I think this kind of validates the naysayers against this too, right? Because just because somebody made this is the standard we want to use, it doesn't necessarily mean that any or all of these AI collection systems are going to use it. Now, I have seen an article where people did the same thing that you did, Charles, and they saw that the bots were actually reading it. And in your situation, the bots are not reading it. So it's kind of a, hey, it's there, that's cool, but
because I think if they were going to use the HTML properly, since alternate already has a use case out in the world, they should make a rel equals LLMs one that consumers of training materials could then use specifically.
yeah, that would probably be a HTML. What is that site that puts out those new guidelines for
Oh,
HTML?
with the RFCs,
Yeah,
yeah. But yeah, repurposing rel alternate might not be a great thing for them to do.
yeah.
So here's an
I kind of
example.
am with you, Clint, on this because you hear a lot of the claims like, oh, you got to have this because if you don't, the bots won't do this and you won't be in the AI, sort of overviews and things like that. And the world comes to a screeching
Screeching
halt.
halt.
This is the key to the whole system. And Charles is coming along. It's like, you know what? The AIs are ignoring this file, at least at this time.
Yeah. And then Majestic did one on their Majestic Million and looked at everyone to see if how many of those million sites, I'm assuming it's a million because it's in the name, have the LLM text, and it was like 0.1% or something to that effect too. So it's just not adopted yet. I think it would take Google or OpenAI to say, hey, we're using this before that becomes a standard versus this guy made a standard and hey, look, you guys should all use this. So
Yeah, I think probably the other test case is Bing gonna visit anything you put in the rel alternate. And my guess is Bing is probably gonna visit all of your alternate pages.
there is a process. Brian Wenham taught it in spring training. He's actually using this the way it's supposed to be, and then he's adding to it, and he's putting all his citations in there. He's doing a whole bunch of linking and stuff, and seeing positive results from it. but I can't speak to was it a test where I tested this one thing and I didn't do anything else and I saw results, or this is a thing that I add to my processes. So I haven't seen that yet, but I'm trying to test it. That's the only reason I
That
put rank math thing on there.
that's totally testable, and that would be remarkable. All you have to do, if you have two websites, you go to one of them, you put a rel alternate to a page on the other one, and see if it comes through.
Yeah.
Check it in the logs.
Most-
That would be awesome.
yeah.
Well, the other thing, you can treat it like, I go back to Clint, who's never found an HTML page he didn't like. You just look at this and say, hey, this is a TXT file. We can put a lot of information in this TXT file, whether it's supposed to be there or not, and see what happens.
Mhm.
So, it's
Well, we know that
all
Google
tested.
is following text-only URLs and considering them backlinks. So, I mean, in
See,
theory,
that's what
you
really
can go
surprised
make
me,
a
Clint.
website with nothing but TXT files and get Google to crawl it.
All right. Ultimate test. This would be the killer ultimate test of this. On site B, you create a new web page for a test keyword. And on site A, you do the rel alternate to the new page on site B, and you submit site A's page to Bing for reprocessing, and you find out if the new page shows up in Bing.
That'd be good.
Yeah, that would be killer. That would be a fast path to indexing.
Mhm.
You could build an indexer because you could have any number of rel alternates on a page. So when people submit to an indexer, it would make rel alternates for a couple of days and then it would clear them out.
So if you do that test and you own an indexer and you apply that method in there, make sure you give Ted Kubaitis credit. So.
Yeah, I want a citation that the nerdy guy from YouTube came up with this.
Came up with this idea.
All right, I will.
It's not that hard.
But you got to test it. You got to see if it works first. But that's how you do it. So
Yep.
think like a tester, and it pays to test. Too few SEO testers in the world.
Well,
All right, rant over.
So, Clint, you were talking about Google following, text URLs. I was really surprised Google never hit this because it's been my experience that if you put any URL on a page, Google follows it. I actually, even after a month, I figured there's no way it didn't come here at some point. When I saw it pop up, I was like, oh, great, Google did show up. But then I realized, nope, that wasn't Google. When I looked at all of the user agents that hit it, I noticed, okay, it did get a bunch of traffic. When you look at all the different user agents that hit it over the past month, kind of organizing a little bit better. This is just I sorted by user agent name. It looks like it's different scrapers and whatnot. Excuse me. Still getting over a cough, but
COVID.
looks like it's a lot of different scrapers and whatnot that were just scraping my site. So it wasn't anything else in there that that was really interesting in my mind. So some of the takeaways from this. Number one, this wasn't a big site, so nothing in here I'd say is definitive. This is a relatively small site. It's just a little test affiliate site I run. So there could be things it's not doing because of my site. Like I said, I'm really surprised Googlebot didn't hit the LLMs.txt. That was my biggest surprise of the whole thing. Because I figured, yeah, Googlebot's going to hit it because it's the URL. Google finds the URL, Google follows it. Make sure you add AI bots to your log analyzer. I'd also, and while I was doing this, I realized, hey, I should be adding SEO tools to my log analyzer as well. If people are interested, maybe I'll even do a training on how to do that with the Screaming Frog log analyzer. It's relatively easy. It's not that complicated. And check out Jordan's site. He has a little tool that does it. So I want to give him a shout out since his tool's what enabled me to run this little test. So that's it.
One last question. Did you put the URLs to the files in your robots.txt?
The URLs to the LLM, you mean?
Yeah.
No.
So
Because that
that's
wasn't
something that Brian Winham is doing and it's working. So maybe
that wasn't part of the the guideline of how you're supposed to use it. So I didn't do anything. I didn't try to do anything edge. I said, does anything even just go here if you put it
Yeah.
out? If you follow the directions, does it what happens?
I'm just saying that's the next logical step for your test. Your test says, hey, this doesn't do shit. So throw it in the robots TXT and see if it does shit.
Yeah, I think the better test would be, I have some larger sites I could try this with, and see what happens if I put this on a larger site. Um, and then I could, then to your point, I could try saying, all right, what do I have to do to get this thing found and crawled? Um, to Ted, to your point, I've done some testing, not with rel alternate, but with some other things to realize that, yeah, um, cross domain indexing is totally a thing. That's all I'm going to say about it right now.
Yeah, I think one of the things, just to reiterate here, because I'll hear it out in the SEO wild, Charles says that the LLMs.txt doesn't work. And that's not what he's saying. He's saying on his one site that he did, he ran this analysis, didn't see it, found some interesting things, but he also handed out the method that he used that other people, like if you've got 20 or 30 sites out there, you can go check it if you've done the LLMs.txt. If you want to put it on some of your sites, but not others, you have a way of validating this for yourself, because going back to Clint's point, there are a lot of damn claims out there about, what AI does and doesn't do when interacting with your site and how to do it and what drives it and everything else. And I think people are wasting a lot of time and energy on crap that doesn't work. So verify for yourself.
And yet, I mean, that's the point. Ted, you said it well. It's before. It's like that's the point of testing. You hear something. Anytime I hear someone say, "Oh, so and so does this," or "You can do this," I'm always running little tests. I was lamenting a couple sessions ago that I hit a little test fatigue, where I'm like, all right, I just can't run any more tests right now. I'm just getting sick of doing tests. But yeah, I'm always testing things. Whenever I hear someone say XYZ or this does that, or if you do this, that'll work. I'm like, huh, I wonder. My point is always, I wonder if that's true. And then I test it. And I'll run a little test, and then I'll see what I get from my little test, and then I'll expand the test out to more sites or a larger site, and then just see what happens. Um,
Yeah. So here's what's fun about that when you talk about testers. If Charles comes back and he goes, "Hey, Lee, I tested that thing you were talking about and I'm not seeing it," then I don't go, "Well, you screwed it up, damn you." No, it's not like that. We'll get on and figure out, all right, how did you test it? Here's how I tested it. Let me go back and retest it. It may have changed, or maybe there's other things. Usually testers don't get mad. They learn off of the retests that others do, because shit changes, you know.
Well, and there's another more important test that we should probably do, which is to put a test keyword and a test definition of the test keyword into an LLMs.txt and come back in 3 or 4 months and see if our new test keyword is findable from an LLM.
Mm.
I'd first want to make sure the LLM got crawled by the, or the TXT got crawled by an LLM though.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, if you can see that it's crawling, if you can say, yep,
Well,
something's crawling.
what the problem is with the rel alternate, are you just getting the web crawler for normal search engine crawling visiting that document as an alternate version? It doesn't mean that it was consumed for AI.
Yeah, that's what I think happened, which again is why I'm so surprised Google didn't hit it, because Google hits everything. It's so if you want to hide a link from Google, put it in a rel alternate apparently, or a rel alternate that's not defined with a um,
But
href lang or
if a test keyword that only resides in that text document becomes findable in an LLM, that's a big discovery.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Lee, did you have anything you wanted to share, or should we go to questions?
We can go to questions, man. I was excited because I knew what Charles was working on here, and I, got a chance to see the data early, and I was like, damn, that is weird. That is, the way that it materialized on his site, it's a small test, but was not at all, in lines with what we might expect, either personally what I expected to happen, or the theories based on, what's being put out in the SEO groups. Didn't happen either. So, Charles took option C, none of the above.
That's what surprised me the most is that this test did not show me anything that I expected to see. I didn't see nothing. I didn't see AI bots hitting it. I didn't see Google bot hitting it. I I expected all of one or all of those things to happen, and none of those things happened.
Yeah.
Let's see. A couple people saying that they're doing everything on Discord. And so yeah, I'd say that's what the largest number of people giving feedback is saying. Hey Ted, your surname is Kubaitis, and I can tell it's Lithuanian because I'm from Lithuania. Do you have any Lithuanian ancestry? Yes, my dad's side of the family is from Lithuania. My grandparents on that side could speak Lithuanian. My dad could speak a little, and I don't speak any. Um, the last name was cut short by immigration. It was Jacobitis. The itis end of the name means son of, so it's son of Jacob, or the Lithuanian version of Jacobson. Um, yeah, so yeah, good eye. Um, let's see. The Kinsta Edge caching is creating 304 page status for all my pages. I feel like this would decrease the crawl rate in my website. Does it hurt my SEO? Um, you know, let me remind myself on what a 304 is. It indicates that the server hasn't changed the requested resource since the last time it was
That
accessed. So that's
that's a
cache
30
control.
yeah, a 304. So we used to do this on our large sites. A 304 is telling the crawler, hey, you can use your cache version of this page because nothing's changed. That shouldn't hurt. In theory, it should help you because you're saving Google time and energy. Anytime you save Google time and energy, it should be helping you. Now, if you're saying that my stuff is changing and I'm still returning the 304, then yes, that's a problem because you're updating your site and you're telling Google nothing's changed.
Let's see. Um, What indexers do you guys recommend using? I'm fond of Clint's advice that if your need to get indexed is urgent, use multiple. I do know that there are some that I've been told are much better than others. They tend to be the more expensive, pay per URL, but they're guaranteed, and if it doesn't work, they credit you. And there's a lot of choices out there from super cheap to quite expensive. So I guess it would really kind of depend on your volume. If you're doing local SEO, then the expensive guaranteed one might be affordable. What do you think, Clint? Do you share your favorites?
I mean, I'm still using Omega. They just updated to a version 2. It's more expensive, so only submit your stuff that your tier ones and your money site URLs to that. Speed links VIP, and then after that, I just use the same list that Charles tested a couple episodes ago. He tested a whole bunch of different services. So.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm going to have I'll have a presentation in a couple of weeks. I'm not going to name names because I have some problems. I have some problems with how I ran my test, so I don't want to say one thing worked or one thing doesn't work until I reran a few things. But with that said, there are the expensive ones aren't always the best. I found some cheap ones that seem to work, but then I've also noticed that some of them I've been having. So the test I ran was linking to submitting a page to Indexer. Will Google crawl it? So I'm not even looking at indexing. Like, does Google even crawl the darn page? Because there are things out there where Google doesn't even crawl it. And then in the page, I have a link to a second page, and the question was, will Google crawl and or index page number 1, and then will it crawl and or index page number 2? Because if you're submitting things to an indexer, you really want to make sure Google's crawling this thing and returning to it. So far from what I've seen, a lot of these indexers, they'll come to the page once and then and Google comes to the page once and then never returns. So I'm going to reorganize everything. I'll show the data that I have got so far, what I've seen, but it needs a bigger and better, more robust test than what I had.
So Charles, one of the things, would you say about half the indexers don't do a damn thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's generous. Like when I say don't do anything, your page doesn't even get crawled by a user agent. There are ones I've submitted and nothing, there is no activity on the URL in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know what these tools are doing, if they're doing anything.
It's
and there are others
front end of an indexing service.
And then there's others that you put your URL in there, and as long as it's a reasonably decent URL, you'll be indexed within like 48 hours in Google. And it doesn't cost $5 a URL to do it either.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
In the absence of having tested a bunch of indexers yourself, you go back to Clint's strategy, which is pick a few that you like and just shotgun it, and hopefully at least one of them gets you crawled.
Now there's going to be a rush of people making miracle indexing. If you need a miracle, come to us, because it's going to take a miracle to get you indexed.
Yep.
So I was running a little interesting little test, little black hat test, and I was submitting to 3 different indexers, and I noticed that my indexing rate went down. And so then I started running a little trial and say, well, if I submit this batch to 3 indexers and I'll submit this next batch to just one of the 3, and then I just kind of went through it, and I found it didn't seem to change the indexing rate significantly. So I'm not sure if putting it in multiple indexers really makes it any safer. Lee, I know we talked about it. Maybe if you stagger it, maybe that will be better. But like taking a page and submitting it to 3 indexers at the same day, at the same time, that didn't seem to increase my indexation rate. Again, I didn't do a perfect test about this. It's just field data I've noticed as I was messing with something else.
If we don't have your data here, and I'm out there and I subscribe to 4 different indexers, and based on what you're saying, half the indexers out there don't do shit. I don't know which of the ones don't do shit. So if I submit to all 4, at least 2 of them should get me crawled.
That's true. No, that's 100%
It's the
true.
shotgun approach, not having tested data.
Yeah, no, my point was I had 3 indexers I know would get Google to crawl the page. But when I would submit pages to all 3, they didn't always, like, my indexation rate wasn't any better than when I just submitted to one of the 3 versus all the 3. The only thing I didn't try is I didn't try staggering the submissions. They always went out at the same time because I wasn't trying to test indexation. I was doing something else. So it was just kind of side data that I noticed as I was messing around. So
So you
I've been spending way too much time on
services that didn't work, or you had one service that didn't work and it happened to be your favorite. And when you only submitted to that one, your indexing rate didn't change because it was only successful half the time anyway. So.
That's possible, but from the tests I ran, the big 3 I use, they always seem to get Google to crawl the page. Crawl, not necessarily
does not
index.
equal index, right?
Yeah, exactly. Crawling is not indexing. Exactly. No, I agree 100%.
So your measurement there is changed. Plus, you said it was black hat, so you could have been.
Yes, and then there were other things going on that could be affecting this. I'm just saying if I were going to if I had a page I really wanted to index, and I haven't tested this, so I don't know, I'd probably submit it to 3 indexers over a couple days. I wouldn't do it all at the same point in time. I'd say like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, I do it all the same time, and then after I'm done, I go right back in the Search Console and do the URL submit.
Yeah.
Plus, I've run Rich Snippet's testing tool, testing my schema a couple times too. So I've had other bots that are on it. So leave no stone unturned because I spent half a day writing this stupid thing.
I would suspect that a lot of these indexing businesses out there started off working. And then over time, the methodologies stopped working. and so they aged into being a scam. But it might not have been intent from the onset to scam you. It's just they're not doing the science to keep up with it, and they're not updating their methodologies. And some of them do update. I know that Omega has had its ups and downs. And so that's really the best you can hope for, because we can't control what Google's going to change. Um, but as long as they adapt and eventually get it back up, that's a good service in my book, because it beats the ones that don't do that, that just stop working and
Yeah.
keep collecting your money.
Well, one of the interesting things, I mean, Charles and I've had, a bunch of conversations around this and around the data. And one of the dangers in testing indexers is there are times when Google's just not crawling stuff. Even if you go into Search Console and submit the damn thing, there are times when Google will give you the middle finger. So, sometimes you could run a test Monday on a bunch of indexers and Google just goes, eh. And then you run the same test on the same indexers on Friday and, crawl some of them and not others. So, you've got a timing issue there as well, which is why staggering them, gives you a better chance of not hitting a closed window.
Yeah, and hence my new saying, never judge an indexer during a core update.
Mm-hmm.
You heard it here first. Patent pending.
No,
All
you're
right.
absolutely right. Things change. I noticed after the 16th of May, my indexation rates dropped on one of my little tests I was running.
Mm-hmm.
They were running consistently in the 90% indexation, and they dropped down to the 70%. I didn't change anything. It's just Google must have changed something on their end.
Yeah.
Google also warning you folks, Google knows that some indexers are doing some shady stuff like submitting pages in like jobs, RSS feeds, and things like that. Google knows folks are doing that, so I have a suspicion they're going to drop the hammer at some point in the next 6 to
Well,
8
they
months.
turn that on and off all the time. They've ever since they made that API because ultimately people abused it. So at one point they had it so that you had to have the required schema on there for it to work, and then they took that off. People figured it out. People created services out of it, and then they quietly turned it back off after everyone was making all their money on it. So, and they just flipped that back and forth.
Let's see. Can you guys talk more about the importance of using brand name and product titles on e-com sites? Is this the best practice on all product titles or only products that have multiple sizes, colors, etc.? Well, oftentimes the brand is part of the search. So if people are looking for, you know, Nike shoes, they don't want another brand. They want to see Nikes, and so branded search can often be higher competition for that reason because the targeting is that much better for branded products in demand. And so when I was in ecom, I would break it up into branded products and uh, unbranded or non-branded products because the non-branded products were typically home runs on the SEO side. Now, granted, their volume tended to be lower, the targeting was a little bit poorer, but you could really ramp up shoppers quickly and easily with the non-branded products. So the sterling silver amethyst bracelet versus the, Nike basketball shoes. One of those is easier than the other. Um, and typically it's targeting. I don't think there's a requirement to use the brand and the product name. There might be a requirement to display a trademark with the brand. I know like Kong Dog Toys, they will send you a cease and desist if you use their brand name without the trademark symbol.
Google's
So
asking for that now. We talked about this, what was it, last week. Google's asking they want you as an e-com store to put brand name in with your product name. No, they want you to do that. And then they're going to be looking for it in the merchant feed. So if you're not doing it, you're kicking yourself in the ass.
Yeah, and I can
There's
tell I could
a gajillion sterling silver amethyst bracelets. There's only one Ted Kubaitis sterling silver amethyst.
well, the reason Google wants those brands in there is they can sell those clicks at a higher price. And so, yeah, of course, Google wants the Nike put in there and the Prada put in
Well,
there.
it doesn't only feed their ads though, it feeds the product carousels, the
Yeah,
non-sponsored part too. So it's not for ecom. It's no longer a hey, I'm running ads, so I need the merchant feed. Now it's I have an e-commerce store, I should have a merchant feed.
um, all right. Any other comments on that?
No.
All right. Let's see. Favorite log file analyzers. We talked about the Screaming Frog one a bunch, and I put in my favorite one, the Unix command line log file analyzer, where you use the more command on the log file, pipe to grep something you want to search for in the log file, and then it gives you a long list of all the hits. And that's my favorite one for seeing how Googlebot is crawling through somebody's website. Are they getting into things they shouldn't be? Are there a bunch of fake Googlebots? What the heck's going on? So yeah, totally free on that one, but you have to learn a little Unix command line stuff. Any other log analyzers being used out there?
When I worked with enterprise sites, they used Datadog. I loved it. I don't think it's practical for most people if they don't have at least a pretty large site.
Yeah, log files get very big as traffic goes up. So, medium and larger businesses will often have a gigabyte or more log files per day. And so usually you have to parse out, what you're looking for in the files and within a date range of, how many days files are you going to look through.
Yeah, the tricky thing we always ran into is the pricing was based on storage. So, 30 days is a long time and a lot of storage for most sites. But it's not that long for a log file. Like, Clint spots a problem on the 30th. Maybe it started on the 25th of the previous month, but if you're dropping logs after 30 days, he'll never see where it happened. He'll just see the results. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they got costs. Like you can't just spend millions of dollars on log files either. I get it.
Yeah, at a certain point, nothing beats custom. So you can build a, multi terabyte, log server just to handle log files and analysis. Let's see. For crawl stats, are there numbers to shoot for as a goal? In April, page resource load was highest, but after some changes in May, smartphone is highest, 35%, desktop 30. Um, I don't know that there really is. Like, I think the nature of the content will often shift whether you're getting more mobile versus desktop. So, if your content is about mobile games, that's probably going to be a lot more mobile heavy device wise than, or if your content is about Mac related things, you'll probably be more iOS device centric. um I don't feel there's a sweet spot. The interesting thing I find about mobile users is mobile users tend to be logged in users. So, um, there's probably more trustworthiness in it not being bots if it's mobile users. What about you guys? You find any sort of slant on mobile versus desktop?
I didn't, but we had a guy in our mastermind that presented some compelling data that we've tested. So there are some things in there that you want to hit, but that's not my information to, to share with the world. But, Abigail, if you need some help with that, you can reach out and I'll put you in touch with him.
Yeah, and I would say diagnostically, if your mobile is super low or zero, then you've got problems with your mobile friendliness. So that would be the thing to look for. But if it's neck and neck with other options, then it seems working.
Yeah, that used to be the way to figure out whether you were on the mobile index or not. Um, but not so much anymore.
Let's see. What are your best tips for landing a new client after initial pitch and call? GA and GSC access secured. Follow up call next week. Any advice appreciated? Um, well, let's see. So you've done an initial pitch. Um, Usually, I mean, it's a question of when do you start work at that time, right? Because if they're not interested, I'd rather start on the next lead. But I guess it also depends how much you've put into getting that initial pitch, how much was invested. So if you're investing a lot more upfront, yeah, you might need to have a fallback pitch, a recovery pitch.
Well, it
Um,
sounds it sounds like what he did was he's got the initial thing and he's been granted, GSE and GA access to look at it and firm up a proposal. So it looks like he's got by the first hurdle, which is we like you enough to give you access to our data.
Yeah, I mean, usually what I do is I run Cora reports on their most important keywords and different page types and the volatility tool as well. And I'll kind of see, are there technical SEO issues? Is the standard of tuning way higher than an average keyword? Because if it's triple the tuning and everything in the roadmap is all green, so we know that everyone's competing on everything. Yeah, it might need change the cost and timeline expectations. And you don't want to find a technical SEO problem 6 weeks from now. If you go back to a customer 6 weeks in and say, hey, you had this pre-existing condition, they're just going to think you did it because why didn't you find it 6 weeks ago? So, really check for anything that's kind of a nightmarish technical issue. Any thoughts on that?
The only thing I'll say is, when if you can get them a quick win or show them how to get, a quick win or show them an aha, immediately, that builds trust. And so, if you've got the data there and you've got something that you can, do really quickly between now and the next call to get them a little movement or, an additional ranking or something along those lines, then, all of a sudden you're a miracle worker.
Let's see, what are the basics to cover for improving crawl rate of a new small website? Well, make sure you don't have any, validation errors and tons of JavaScript errors. Make sure your website is actually working. Make sure that it's actually findable in search by some means. It doesn't have to rank, in the best place to start, but as long as it's in there, that is an indicator of overall healthiness. And generally, for crawl rate, either you're wasting it already, so it's like a mass page site or a giant, online store, and there are infinite crawls or things that Google gets tired of. And so if you're in those buckets, then you kind of want to figure out what's actually important and fix any infinite crawls. The other thing you'd want to do is make it so that the pages update at a regular interval. Because if there's no reason to come back, why should Google come back? So make a reason for Google to come back. Any suggestions on crawl rate?
Yeah, I'll go with two that are really quick and easy because I have an appointment that I've got to start leave here in a couple minutes. But one, when you look in Search Console, if you look at go to the Pages tab and see what pages are there, you'll see if you have um, infinite crawl type issues or duplicates. You have HTTP and HTTPS pages there, or dub, non-dub, slash, no slash, or anything with all of the parameterized URLs in there. Those are indications of problem that'll give you crawl issues. And then if you go in Search Console in the settings and look at the crawl stats, you can look for things that scream problem. Like, do you have a bunch of 404 pages, or do you have a whole bunch of, redirect pages that you weren't aware that you had because, some plugin or, your developer or something did some things and screwed it up. And, now you're off to a bad start. Getting all those things fixed, typically you won't have any crawl problems.
All right. So more questions about indexers. I really don't know the methods that various indexers are using. Those are typically guarded secrets because if I did know the methods they were using, I would just build my own indexer because I'm a programmer. And so typically that stuff is their trade secret. It's why their service has value. They have a better, more reliable method, is what they're arguing. And so you really just got to find one that you're happy with and go with it. Um, so I don't know Omega's secret sauce. I think Clint knows it, but I think Clint would probably not share it publicly.
Yeah, they
So,
would never talk to me again.
so yeah, so no clue. Let's see. Somebody says they like Jet Octopus for a log file analyzer. So if you're shopping around Jet Octopus, take a look at it. And is anyone using anything for posting and responding on Reddit? Any tools out there for that? I don't do any of that, so I don't know.
Typewriter, computer, my keyboard, my mouse.
Wait, let me write all
Yeah,
this down here quick.
Whoa. Can you repeat that, Clint? Because we have.
Let's see. And last one, and just under the wire. Hello, dear SEOs. I really need to know if AgeGate can cause Google crawler issues because when I inspect with the inspection tool, I don't see any text besides just the AgeGate interface. Yeah, if that's coded in JavaScript, it can block content. And so, yeah, that could totally interfere with Google's crawling of a page. So I assume AgeGate is something to verify that you are, at least claiming to be 18 or older. Um, and so, yeah, that can be a problem. Implementation matters. There's a way to implement it so it's not a problem, and there's a way to implement it so it is a problem. And so it sounds like you have the implementation where it is a problem. So let's say it's trying to keep little kids away from explicit material. You'd want a good blocking interface for that. But if you're just, selling hemp products online, then, maybe the content could still be in the source, but you just bring up this verification pop up that's nagging. Implementation matters.
You were
I-
going to say something, Charles. I saw you shaking your head because
Yeah, I
you
was just
guys
going to say,
implemented paywall over at Fox, right? So
yeah, I've run into this many times. There is something, I don't know if it doesn't matter whether it's an age validator. Google will say age validators don't matter. They do matter. Anything, any kind of interstitial overlay will affect the crawler. I've seen it doing a bunch of different things. I've even tried doing it where it's not covering up content. So someone could still read the entire page. We're covering up something else. Google still, the mere presence of something popping up seems to cause a problem.
yeah, the solution I'd recommend if it's a custom built website is go back to the developers and just tell them to never ask the age if the referrer is Googlebot. Just don't show it.
Yeah.
Google's old enough, by the way. So if it's Googlebot, we know they're old enough.
They can see everything.
Yes.
would you do something like your stealth SEO concept so that you make sure that only the proper IPs are getting through? Because there is like Epoch. You go in, if you turn off JavaScript in your browser, you can watch Epoch. You can read the Epoch website. But if you do that in Fox, you can't read. You still can't read the Fox website to get past the paywall. So
there's a way to code it, and there's a way to code it wrong. So yeah, that you're right that you could look at specifically at the IPs or the reverse DNS and verify that it actually is Google. It's extra. CPU cycles to do that and extra network cycles to do that. So it depends how much traffic you have as to whether or not that's viable. Um, but yeah, you know, at a minimum, at least don't show it to the Googlebot user agent and it won't interfere with the SEO. And hopefully your content's not so valuable that people can game it. If it's a paywall thing, that's kind of different than just are you old enough to be here? So
Yeah.
depends on the use case too.
Without getting, we won't get into it today, but there is a way, if you have a paywall, to let Google see it. Google does have specs. So if you have a paywall, there is a way to let Google see it, but not everybody else.
All right. And I think we'll stop there because everybody has to go. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your questions. Um, so next time, be sure to ask early if it's urgent, and it's always important. And we will see you next week. So thanks a lot, everyone. Oh,
Thanks a lot,
and
everybody.
check out SEO This Week. That's Clint's YouTube show. He has a lot of great content every week. So just go to YouTube and search for SEO This Week.